than their actual capabilities. Indeed, Henry Kissinger warned decades later that once Iran achieved a military nuclear program at the very edge of going operational, other countries in the region would be driven to reorient their political alignment toward Tehran. In a similar vein, Michael Green and Katsuhisa Furukawa found that Japan's massive nuclear energy enterprise provided Tokyo with a bomb in the basement it used to signal or increase its leverage with both Washington and Beijing. Once a country can build the bomb quickly, it may be in a strong position to dial up coercive pressure on great powers. Contrary to this prevalent belief, I find that more nuclear latency does not always translate into greater bargaining advantages. In a merger of coercion theory with nuclear proliferation scholarship, this book presents a new framework for explaining how states leverage latency as an effective coercive instrument. Compellence creates a sharp trade-off between making proliferation threats and non-proliferation assurances credible. I identify a menu of bargaining tactics states can employ to get off the horns of this dilemma. However, states need just enough latency to make these tactics effective. At low levels, proliferation threats are not credible. Marching to the cusp of the bomb solves this problem, but it also becomes increasingly costly and difficult for state leaders to offer assurances as they face growing barriers to nuclear reversal. I uncover a Goldilocks zone where it is easiest to make both threats and assurances credible. Compellence with nuclear latency is most likely to work when states are in this fissile material sweet spot. The rest of the introduction sets up my framework and previews the book's main findings in 6 parts. The first makes explicit my assumptions about compellence with nuclear latency. The second part scopes out the main actors, great power sheriffs and potential proliferators who pursue this strategy for different reasons. The third part surveys the historical track record of latent nuclear compellence outcomes over time. The fourth part summarizes my argument about the sweet spot for bargaining with nuclear latency. The fifth part reviews the research approach guiding the empirical chapters. The final part summarizes the book's contributions and lays out a roadmap for the study. Illuminating the strategy. Compellence is a form of coercion for persuading an actor to undertake an action it prefers not to execute. The strategy involves 3 main features. First, one state, the challenger, issues demands for another state, the target, to change the status quo in some way. Second, the challenger inflicts or threatens to inflict punishment until the target complies with these demands. Challengers use a wide range of tools to underwrite compellent threats. As Robert Art and Kelly Greenhill underscore, the key is to impose some cost or pain to the target or explicit threats thereof, with the implied threat of increasing the cost or pain if the target does not concede. Third, the challenger promises to end the coercive process once the target yields. This assurance is crucial to making compellence work, as it guides the target down an off-ramp where it can avoid punishment by complying with the challenger's demands. Strategies of compellence are successful when challengers wrest concessions or other behavioral changes from targets. I follow Robert Art in defining success as how closely and quickly the target conforms to one's stipulated wishes. Even when the target yields, however, challengers must factor in the costs they pay to achieve this outcome. The process of mobilizing military forces to underwrite compellent demands, for example, can generate operational costs and blowback. If these enforcement costs exceed the benefits reaped from coercion, Lawrence Friedman notes, then the challenger achieves a Pyrrhic victory. Compellence is most successful when the aspirant puts enough pressure on the target to concede while incurring minimal enforcement costs. What is nuclear latency, and how can it underwrite compellent strategies? Scholars have long referred to potential or latent powers as the resources available for a state to build up its military forces. Nuclear latency is a special type of potential power. It refers to a nation's capability to build atomic weapons. Scott Sagan defines the concept as a measure of how quickly a state could develop a nuclear weapon from its current state of technological development if it chose to do so. In particular, nuclear latency is based on the capacity to make the fissile material